I don't know where to begin.
Where does one begin? At the beginning, I suppose.
Is that from a book?
Should be.
Sounds
the
like
book that we read one day.
Yeah.
Definitely from this podcast.
Kind of sounds like a Dickens novel, but
yeah,
I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember in The Simpsons when Mr. Burns, as one of his like shows of outrageous wealth, he actually has 100 monkeys writing on 100 typewriters, which is an old like cliche of like if you had all these monkeys writing on all these typewriters, eventually they'd write the works of Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
And he just goes up to one of the monkey typewriters and pulls it out, and he goes, "It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. This is terrible."
Dude, I never watched The Simpsons. I never did.
You should have.
I know, man. I feel like I missed it because I can't go back.
It was a golden era too, the late 90s. That's when I was really watching it.
Someone somewhere should do a Simpsons, like one YouTube video that has compiled the 30 best Simpson lines or like
jokes,
mm-hmm. just in order that you could watch them. That would be epic.
Mm-hmm.
I would watch it.
It's so subjective, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, well, Rob, I thought it was a good idea, so don't worry.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea still, too.
I think it's a good idea, and I stand by it.
Stand by it.
I'll bet you if you Google it, people have done that, though. People do that for, like, Always Sunny and Arrested Development.
That is true.
Other shows and things, yeah. I bet they have. Well, but it's such an epically massive TV series, isn't it?
Right, so long.
It spanned for what, like 20 years or still going?
I don't know. It's just because it's my cohort of people my age, but it seems like the consensus is that it's not the best it was ever was like the late 90s, early 2000s when we were watching it. And then it just kind of got lame.
I like
Brimmer.
Go ahead.
I said Brimmer's also a huge Simpsons fan, and he quotes it about as much as you and Barron do.
Oh, man.
Mike Warden is also a big quoter of it. It's nice when you get around people who are also Simpsons fans because they remember things you don't, and you remember things they don't, and you start to riff. It's a whole thing.
Many of the Simpson quotes I know and enjoy are just from you over the years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Dude, the all-time favorite, which I first heard on the cast, was the Mike Tyson.
Oh yeah, he's a good man. I respect him as a fighter, but I'm definitely gonna make orphans of his children.
Dude, that thing ripped me.
What does he say? That it doesn't go on to like talk about his wife.
The press guy goes, "You're aware the children have a mother," and he goes, "Yes, but I imagine she would die from grief."
That was good. I like the one of is it Chief Wiggum, the cop, and there's an elephant attacking Springfield, and he's trying to describe. He's like, "Yeah, it's a long toes thing sticking out of its face," and the guy goes, "You mean a trunk, Chief?"
He goes, "Easy,
college boy."
Nice, dude.
Yeah, just good.
It's good fun.
So anybody reading anything good? Oh, go ahead.
Today I was kind of pumped just all day because it was Edith Stein's feast day.
Same, man. Preached on her this morning.
It got me totally amped up. Yeah. I was also pretty upset that the breviary has like no special love for Teresa Benedict of the Cross.
None.
No office.
The breviary was written before she was a saint.
Get with the times, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, but even like the iBreviary app, they had no additional readings.
Ooh.
Nothing.
There was nothing.
Nope. She's great, though. I talked about, and I was like laughing at myself because I wanted to do it. But in the daily mass homily today, I talked about Hegel, Heidegger, Wojtyła, Stein. And I was like, I'm not sure that I have all of those people straight anymore, like who's who, but I love that stuff because of how cool Stein is and her influence.
Yeah, totally.
Husserl.
Yep. I talked to my religious affairs specialist today, the soldier that works in the same office as me, and both myself and her make up the unit ministry team. And she's like a Christian, and she'll put up these little things on our door that's different religious feasts. And she said, Connor got to meet her. She's just awesome. And it's just so like young and just kind of excited for the world
I feel
and
like she would
loves.
like the cast.
I think she would, honestly. She listens. She
Oh, really?
listens, and her mom listens, I think. So
Oh,
shout
sweet.
out, Bleezy, if you're
Yeah.
listening,
Holla.
rocking. Um, she said, if I can't find a feast, I usually just go on these Catholic websites, and y'all have feasts like every day. Y'all always have something to celebrate.
That's
So
cool.
she had Teresa Benedicta up on the whiteboard, and tomorrow's St. Lawrence. So I got to tell her the story of St. Lawrence, and I'm like, Bleezy, you got to look up Edith Stein, Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. And I kind of told her story, and it just got me pumped up, man. She's a super saint with a huge brain.
Hmm.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know much about her. I've never read.
Bros,
Give the
anything.
synopsis of her story, Mets.
Well,
It would be a great cast to extend to the world.
Yeah. Well, so she was born Jewish and then became an atheist. And then,
Because she was in like philosophy and stuff?
yeah, I
Or
think
that was
was
like
just
the
in the world
path
of
that she took?
academia.
But she was already a philosopher when she was an atheist.
That's my understanding. Is that right, Rob?
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah. I don't know that, like, yeah, how
She was
close they're
always
in
a
conjunction
brain.
to each other. Yeah,
Super
exactly.
brain. So then she went to university, and she was born in Poland and then went to university in Germany, and ended up obviously just crushing it. But then she got her doctorate and then became a professor. I can't remember exactly what university in Germany, but
She studied. Was that when did she study under, and then did she go work for Husserl?
she studied under him and then worked for him
Okay.
and compiled. So that's when Husserl was creating phenomenology, which is I would say one of the most influential philosophies from the 21st century, and certainly
Oh,
impacted
yeah.
JP2 and the creation of theology of the body and a deepening of theology in the modern era. Like Edith Stein's right at the heart of all that. And they say that she, as she served for Husserl, who was the kind of the popular creator of this philosophy phenomenology, that he would have all these ideas, but the ideas would kind of just be scattered and would be kind of placed around the office as like a type of an image for the way that he would articulate phenomenology. But she was the one that actually took all these different ideas and synthesized them in a way that was actually communicable and intelligible. And so in a lot of ways, like there's potential that phenomenology wouldn't exist if Edith Stein hadn't have been the one that compiled all of these different ideas from Husserl and actually communicated it in a way that people could understand it. So who's got the bigger brain? The guy who's coming up with the ideas, or the gal who follows the ideas but also has the linkage between all of them and then can actually share that with the world? And I would say that's Edith Stein right there. And
It's
then she went
definitely
on to
Stein. No
translate.
doubt about it.
She translated Aquinas, and then she went back for a second doctorate while she was teaching as a professor in university. And I think they wouldn't accredit the second doctorate, and I can't remember exactly why, but she and I don't think when she went to defend it, they didn't accredit it, so she only has one doctorate. But bear in mind, she's also a professor who's a Jew and a female in basically right around the time of Nazi Germany in Germany. And she still was like an intellectual boss that was basically so smart. They were like, we can't not have this lady teach in Nazi Germany. A Jewish female did all of that and then read her way into Christianity. She kind of has that famous moment where she reads Teresa of Avila's The Way of Perfection. And the story is she read it one night and she closes the book and she says, this is true. And then converts to Catholicism, joins the monastery, becomes a nun,
Carmelite?
and then Carmelite. Yeah. And then
She died at Birkenau.
she died at Birkenau. So her order was like, you and I think her sister Rose, you have to flee the country or else the Nazis are going to come and find you and they're going to kill you. And she said, no, I'm going to die with my people. And so she stayed. The Nazis
Meaning the
did
Jews?
come. Yeah, with the Jews and with her sisters.
Mhm.
With her sisters.
But the Nazis just came and took the Jewish nuns.
I think that's right.
Is that right? Yeah.
I think so. I don't know that for sure, but that's how I remember it. Is that they found out like what monastery they were hiding them in, and they
Yeah.
just took
I think it was
the
like in
Jewish sisters.
Switzerland or
Yep.
somewhere around there. So she stayed. She had the opportunity to flee the United States and
Yep.
didn't want to leave her people. Yeah. So she ended up getting shipped to Birkenau and died there.
Yep.
But
Kind of a unique martyr, kind of like Maximilian Kolbe. Different kind of martyrdom.
Yeah, same. I mean, they died within like a mile of each other, probably,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty cool. There's a lot of cool stories about her conversion as well. Like there's the one I've always loved it where she was kind of on the cusp of her conversion, and she was in some European cathedral, and a lady on a shopping trip came in with shopping bags and prayed. And it like just blew her away that Catholics could come and like talk to a personal God when they were out shopping, and then just stay for a few minutes and leave. And
yeah, like
that's
I
a
didn't
cool one.
talk to God like a friend.
Yeah, and I think this was Stein as well. Like early in her conversion, she was staying when she was working on a doctorate or something. She was staying with a couple that she really respected, and the guy died. And it was like this tragedy because they would have been like a young couple, and the wife of the guy who she was friends with like bore the tragedy and the loss with like an immense amount of grace. And so she was sad, all like grieving and all of that, but she like understood it through this lens of faith, and it just like Stein had never really comprehended anything like it. And so it kind of spurred on an interest in Christianity.
Yeah. It was a true Christian witness that I think got her.
This might be an odd question, but was there just like, even before her conversion, a natural moral goodness to her? She sounds just like a person who had great virtue, maybe her family. I mean, all these courageous choices, obviously God's grace is involved, but what was she like before?
She served as a nurse as well during World War I. So that would have been like in her late teens, early 20s, which would have been, I mean, an unbelievably like scarring, but also worldview shaping experience for her. So definitely already had this natural desire to care and take care of people. And and my understanding is that they had a pretty close family, and I think she loved her parents. She loved her mom very, very much. I can't remember what her relationship with her dad was like, but
I don't know either.
A lot of her great photos and stories is like her sitting around kind of, she's a sister to Therese in a lot of ways, but so different that she's kind of almost more like, a lot of her photos are almost more melancholy. And she's kind of like smoking a cigarette and like drinking a coffee and like thinking about the deeper things of life. And
can you imagine Therese smoking a cigarette?
Dude,
I can actually. Yeah.
It would be like watching a 3-year-old smoke a cigarette or something.
Yeah.
It's like, what? That doesn't go together.
Like she's like, Therese is way more, obviously the childlike and this kind of like bubbly, but they share the same heart, and they're both doctors of the church, and they're both Carmelites, and
within a short amount of time to each other as well.
40, 50 years.
Edith Stein is a doctor of the church?
She's a doctor.
Is she really?
Isn't she?
I don't think so. I think it's the female ones are Teresa of Avila, Therese of Lisieux. What'd you say, Catherine of Siena?
Yeah, I think that's
and Hildegard of Bingen.
Of Bingen. Wait, can we look this up? I feel like this is a Joe Rogan thing. Jamie, look this up.
Megan?
Grace.
Is Megan on here?
All right, guys, I think she is.
Are we just looking up female doctors of the church? Or is it just the question, is Edith Stein?
Did I wish this into existence?
There's only 4.
Did I get them? I got them all.
Yeah, Hildegard, Catherine, Teresa, and Therese.
That's garbage, dude.
She might be, dude. It's just not that. She died in the 20th century.
Once we throw it out there, who knows how quick that goes up the ranks, though.
It's a wildfire at this point. It's
well, I don't know enough about her to say so, but two out of 3 of the 3 dogs north, giving their partially unanimous endorsement.
Yeah,
that's got to be worth something.
Can you at least abstain So we would have like at least no
Sorry,
naysayers.
no, I have to say no.
What?
Well, no, that is absolutely a moment to abstain.
Oh my gosh.
You
Yeah, no, I abstain.
are
Okay,
tarnishing
okay.
your voting record right now. Like,
That's true.
I question everything about your character.
I wasn't even on this cast as far as you guys are concerned.
Yeah,
Silent guest.
Mhm.
Where did you see it online? I don't believe
I
it.
put it in the Google thing, and
Google.
it was one of Google just put it. It could be.
You're right. I did not cross check that with
When was she canonized?
whatever.
What, in like in the 90s?
People also ask, can a woman be a doctor of the church? That's an unfortunate question.
Dude, Teresa Benedict of the Cross has got to be a doctor of the church, dude.
I agree.
I'm saying it right now. It's got to be.
She died in 42.
Mm-hmm.
When was she canonized?
I feel like
Wikipedia?
canonization was in recent memory.
In
The JP2 canonizer, right?
Right. And as a matter of fact, look, I got it right here. The Science of the Cross. Insane. This book right here.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal book.
Is ridiculous. So we took a whole semester and just did a class with Father Mark Duran on Edith Stein, who he like crushes on pretty hard and knows her thought very well. And so it was a very cool, and he's Polish. So it's a very cool perspective to get to study Edith Stein. Yeah.
That was one of the coolest things that, like, looking back on that independent study with him, it's one of the cooler things I've ever had the chance to do because of his legit expert level knowledge of her and his just like genuine love for her. It was very cool.
It was we left that class and I think we both agreed that this was the case and declared it to be so, that she has the most the most precise and correct anthropology of anybody who's ever existed.
To this point. You heard it here.
Point.
You heard it here first.
Her understanding of the human person and the way that she articulates it is unrivaled by anybody who's ever talked about that ever in human history. That's
to
what
me,
I
it's
think.
just funny to speak to say I've read enough of all of the thinkers to say this is the one. It's kind of like Napoleon Dynamite when he goes, "This is pretty much the worst video ever made," and Kip goes, "Napoleon, like anyone could ever know that."
Yeah. Well, that's.
But I appreciate the superlative. I want to read that book, Science of the Cross.
I think you would like the book a lot. And I will also be honest, I probably wouldn't have understood more than like 3 sentences of it without Mark walking us through it. But
yeah, that's true.
It was really good. Really
pretty dense.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievably dense. Yeah. I can send some sections to you that I think really drills into, like, specifically the anthropology of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is
how would you in your
flip
words
me on
in
that
a
as well?
Yeah, flip me on that.
Okay. Oh, is
how
that
would
a thing?
you describe her?
Yeah, it means
her
include me on an email.
It is. It's
or what
complete.
Does she say the human person is?
Well, so it's complete in the way that she unifies. The church talks about the body-soul composite. Mm-hmm. Her anthropology unpacks that phrase in a way that I think is unrivaled, so that you can see the harmony that exists between the physical body and the actual eternal soul, and the way that she unites the two together, I think is just true. Like, this is what God was thinking when he made people. She says it. And so, yeah, one of the big ideas that we talked a lot about in that independent study was that the human person and the ego of the person, not in like a bad way, but who the person truly is, it's like a mine shaft that deepens and narrows to the specific point that is the soul, which is relationship with Jesus Christ.
She calls it the kern, I think.
The kern.
Yeah.
And so then it, like, from top to bottom, it goes like you have the physical, like the material, and then you have the psychological, emotional, and then you have the spiritual, and then you have this like unarticulatable kern, which it is relationship with God. So she
Mm-hmm.
says, what is the human person? Is loved by God. That would be her definition of the human person. And at the heart of that, that's why it's the science of the cross. Is what sits in the center of the love is the cross. And so to understand the experience of the physical, the emotional, the psychological, the spiritual, it all has to be understood through this hermeneutic of the cross, which is the revelation of God's love. And that's deeply sacramental. So you can drink a cup of coffee and experience relationship with God because the material and the emotional and the psychological and the spiritual and the kern, they're all connected and they're all united. And so the way that the human person is, it's not body, soul, like two different things, but it's more like the body is an extension, is a physical manifestation of the soul,
Yeah.
which is a really, I never heard that before. The body is the physical extension of the eternal, invisible soul.
Extension or manifestation, expression.
Expression. Yeah. Because
I kind of like that better.
we wouldn't want to say it in like the Cartesian dualism
Yeah, that's
where
kind of
there's
what I
like
was.
the soul in there, but it's more like, which is cool because that's also biologically true.
Yeah, true.
So
We use gene expression.
yeah, and when when a new human being is created, you have everything that you need for the physical growth of the person, but they also already have a soul. And then the body like literally grows from that little place outwards. The soul is not kept in like that little compartment that as the body expands, the soul encapsulates and extends with the body.
Yeah, and the soul is already always there in its completeness because who the soul is
Loved by
beloved
God.
child, loved by God. Yeah,
Yep.
that's who you always are. I was reading something recently that kind of blew me away about the psychological dimension, um, and some of the attacks on our true self and the ways that we kind of act on our false self because of that insecurity of not living in that place of the reality of who we are as loved by God. And the psychologist Whitfield, he was saying that fear is almost always a useless emotion. Like it's like almost, except that when a tiger is attacking or something, it's almost always useless. It just kind of clouds our judgment and makes things more complicated or difficult. That the truth is like we are always safe, period, because we are always a beloved child of God. That's who we are, no matter what. And so any fear of abandonment, rejection, condemnation, destruction is just not true and not helpful. Um, and I think that's when you were talking about the kern. Um, that's what struck me is like, can I be the kern I want to be? And yes, I can be, and really, I can't not be. Actually, it's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I can, like Augustine, live outside of myself rather than within
Yeah.
myself, looking outward. And that's where it's like, even the devices of like spiritualizing things or moralizing things, like, oh, I should be less selfish. I shouldn't be so inward focused, certain activism in the spiritual things. Um, uh, it's not inward. It's not selfish or self-absorbed to be aware of my heart's reactions to things, to just to pay attention to my own inner life more authentically, because that's the only way that I can actually share it with God, is to say, look at the stars, look at this or that person is annoying me, or like anything that's going on in your heart, to just be aware of it, so then you can live out in reality, or perceive it for what it is, rather than constantly being afraid or concerned or obsessed with getting reality to validate what's empty inside, because I'm not living in the current, or I'm not acting as if I am who I truly am. And it's also interesting with the body expressing your kern, because that's a place where we tend to really compare ourselves a lot. Like, how attractive am I, or how,
Yeah.
And people hate their bodies. People hate who they think they are, because we have fallen for some false definition of what it means to be okay or good or
Yeah.
acceptable or lovable.
Yeah. And that's something that I found so valuable. Yeah. It's one of those great theologians that it immediately makes you look, that it immediately impacts your real spiritual life. So it's like super tough to study Edith Stein without also growing in holiness, which is also an indicator of why she is / should be a doctor of the church. But when she talks about that anthropological stacking of the human person, like what we're made of, um, the mine shaft that as it deepens, that the ego, can bob up and down, and
Mhm.
oftentimes um, it's asking the question, like, in what part of yourself, in what part of reality are you living? And oftentimes we do get stuck at the physical instead of actually living through the down to the kern. But the way to work down to the kern, you can't jump from, I'm afraid, now my palms are sweating and I'm feeling nervous and I can feel my diaphragm tremble. I need to jump down to the kern. But she understands how the person, which is complicated and multi-layered, that you have to say, man, look at this physical reaction that I'm having. Now I've worked through the physical. Man, I'm really afraid because I think X, Y, and Z. So there's the
I'm going to screw this
psychological.
up.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I'm like emotionally terrified because I'm afraid that nobody's going to love me. So now we're in real time, not, oh, I just want to be a beloved child of God. And now we just jump from point A of fear to at the center of the current. You have to actually work through
Which is a
that.
way of condemning yourself. I shouldn't feel this way. This is a bad feeling. I'm not being a good child of God. It's like you have to
But
work through that and
She
accept
even
yourself.
has in yeah in the Science of the Cross too. She has the I think it's in there that this again because she's a spiritual master as well, and so it's
And
like
debatably a doctor of the church,
she
apparently.
should be a doctor of the church. I'm convinced. Um, but in that in that descent to the kern,
hmm,
like I remember it's just a couple pages, but she points out, I can't remember how she words it, but in a sense, there's going to be times that you can't even if you have that process, if you know the reality, you can't do it by yourself. Because she points out there's going to be experiences where you have to have like someone that has also been there direct you through it. And so you experience it not as a wall, but as a threshold then. Like even if it's darkness, to stay in and go towards the kern.
yeah, which is so cool.
Well, I was raising my hand just to alert you of the time.
Yeah.
I saw the hand raise. It kind of makes me
Mhm.
want to do it.
Yeah.
But
I
isn't
saw
that
it
the
too.
exact, that's like the theological articulation or the anthropological articulation of the R, of the acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what that looks like, man. Or at
Yeah.
least that's the theological explanation of what we practice.
R
And
as
so
in
it's like
ARRR, acknowledge,
A
relate,
R
receive,
R
respond.
R. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like R, the
That's for
pirate
that's for
R.
Megan.
Uh, yeah. So I love her, man. Um, I
Well, your
have
love's
a
been contagious. Now I want to read that book.
read it, dude.
Read it.
Have Father Mark Duran, read you Science of the Cross and his beautiful Polish accent.
That should be in the Hallow app. Mark Duran reading Science of the Cross.
Gosh, it should be. Let's boycott the Hollow app until it is.
Oh my gosh, dude! I just brought up a bunch of memories of impersonations and things like that.
Robbie Cotto is excellent at Mark Duran and Dennis Kasule.
He was excellent
Mhm.
at
And so is
impersonations in general.
Jacob. Yeah, my gosh.
All right.
All right, guys. Let's get another one on the calendar soon. This is good.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit stop.